Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GoDaddy Pro meetup. We are very excited to have Topher back. We love it when he gets to come around. And today we're talking about security. So, Topher, you want to take it away?
You bet. I have to figure out how to share my screen. There it is. So today we're going to talk about why website security matters, who needs it, and what happens when it's not there. As by way of introduction, my name is Topher DeRoja. I am a senior WordPress architect at Camber Creative. I'm also the brand ambassador for BigCommerce. If you follow BC for WP on Twitter, you can see some of my tweets about that. You can find me at Topher1Kenobi just about anywhere on the internet. All of the socials, all of the Slacks, etc. So let's dive right in. I want to start by talking about why hacking happens. Who benefits? What do they gain? Why would anybody bother hacking? The first reason is entertainment. Hacking is fun. Hacking is exciting. I personally have I don't think anything I've ever done I would consider hacking, but in the early days of my career, learning how to log into a remote server was very exciting. It was the beginning of the internet. This was the early 90s. I remember the first time using Telnet to connect to the University of Arizona to use their web browser. And just that act of logging into a remote server and using tools there was very exciting, very intoxicating. And there are people who find it extra exciting if they're not supposed to be there. It's intoxicating. The power is intoxicating. The ability to control something that you're not supposed to be able to control can be very intoxicating. And that's why people keep doing it. And these days, basic website hacking is relatively easy. There aren't that many people really in the world who do what I consider to be true hacking, where they spend the time and energy to engineer tools to find holes in things. That takes a really deep level of knowledge. But once that's done, it's pretty easy to script what they did. And that's what most entertainment hacking uses. They download a script that they found, they put in some information, it scans 100,000 WordPress sites and says, hey, here's 10 that have the security flaw. Follow these commands and you can break in. It's easy. It happens. The people who do that kind of hacking often don't do it very long. It gets boring. I mean, owning a website, unless you're going to do something with it, once you get over that initial excitement of having broken in, it's not that great. But entertainment is absolutely a reason that people hack and break into websites. Then there's political motivation. People who feel their free speech is being repressed will hack public sites to get their message out. This is not uncommon for rebel groups in repressed countries to break into websites and put up their own propaganda that says, listen, our government is crushing us and we don't have any way to communicate with the world because they blocked out cell phones and the internet, and this is our way. But then there's the reverse. People with few physical assets, terrorists perhaps, who don't actually have weapons but want to hurt people, will attack hack enemy servers to do damage. So you'll see a lot of terrorist groups that are trying to break into water treatment plants or power companies or whatever to hurt people. So political motivation actually can go both ways. It depends on which side of the fence you're standing on. Are you supporting the repressed people who are hacking to be free, or the other side? And then there's financial motivation, and this is the primary reason. A very, very common reason is to establish zombie bots for a command and control global network. And I'll talk about how that works in just a few minutes. Then to leverage their global network, either to extort money for themselves or to rent it to other criminals. And then lastly, to siphon credit card information from online stores. So I'd like to talk about two of these because they are the most common and probably what you're going to run into. And what's interesting about financial motivation is the hackers usually want to remain unknown. They don't want you to know that they have hacked your site. They don't want to slow it down. They don't want to break it. They don't want to put up a big banner on the homepage that says, "Ha, we got you." They don't want you to know because your website then becomes a tool. It used to be that desktop computers worked or were used for this. You may remember the days of when Windows machines were constantly having worldwide hacks, and criminals were using desktop machines, individual persons' machines, for this. But these days, they'd rather use web servers because they're more powerful and often easier to break into. So a common tactic will be for a hacker to break into a website and set up a little bit of code that listens for a message and then just sits there and does nothing. So you don't know it. It's not hurting anything. It's just sitting there. But then the person in control will contact a bank and say, if you don't send us $50,000 by tomorrow afternoon, we're going to bring down your entire bank website and your customers will not be able to use it. And on the grand scheme of things, $50,000 is practically nothing to a large bank. And usually they just pay it. They don't want people to know that you don't see this in the news because they don't want to be known as the bank who pays off criminals. But it's been pretty well researched, and it happens fairly regularly that a bank will just pay up rather than be broken. And so nothing happens. Your server is never used. If the bank does not comply, then a message is sent out to all of the websites that they've ever hacked, and each one of them just begins making a normal web request to the bank website. Maybe your own hacked server will do 5 per second, which isn't very much. It wouldn't slow down your server. You still wouldn't know. But if you get 100,000 servers, each making 5 requests per second to the bank site, it's going to crush it. And so that's a big reason why they would want to use your website. But then alternatively, maybe they don't want to use the network themselves at all. Maybe somebody wants to do this scam but does not have their own network. They don't have their own hacked worldwide system. They could come to the person who set this up and say, listen, I will give you half the money if you let me borrow your network to do this thing. And so that's even less work for them. They just get money for having hacked this network. Now, the alternative is to actually go for a single website that streams a lot of money. So I'm talking about something like Amazon or Sears or JCPenney's or any large store that does a high amount of traffic. And when they break in, they don't actually want to steal from the store. They want to skim the credit card numbers that all of the customers are using. And then they'll use that information to make microtransactions. So they'll take $5 per month from every person. And most people aren't going to notice. And but $5 from, say, 500,000 credit cards is a lot of money. And so they'll break into one store. And again, they don't want the store to know. This is not about ego. This is not about fun. They just want to sit there very quietly, skimming off credit card numbers. And then they want to go very quietly and take a little bit of money from each person. It's very subtle. It's very quiet. And again, you don't see this a lot on the banks or a lot on the news. They don't want to know. There was a large one from Target a few years ago where they actually broke into the credit card swipers in the stores. But it's a lot easier to break into websites. So that's financial motivation. But who gets hurt and how are they hurt? And how badly are they hurt? This is nuanced as well. With an entertainment hack, it's usually the site owner, because usually it's kids and they want to make a mess. Think of it akin to teenagers breaking into a vacation home in the off season when no one's there. They just want to get in and have fun. They drink what's in the fridge, they knock the furniture around, and they leave. So maybe they delete your database as a laugh or whatever. So it's usually the site owner. Damage is usually limited to site destruction. They're not using yours as a base to go hurt other people. They just want to make a mess and be dumb. However, if you're running an e-commerce site, site destruction can lead to financial losses for you. And that can be particularly painful. So if it's just your blog, it's annoying. You have to reset it up and try and figure out how they got in and all of that. It just takes a little time. If it's your personal store, you're selling t-shirts and it's your only income, that can really hit you financially if you're down for days or weeks. So who gets hurt with political motivation? People who are suppressing speech. So if the repressed rebels out there break into a website and say, listen, our government is killing us, that's going to hurt that government, which may or may not be a good thing depending on where you stand. People who believe untrue propaganda. It's not uncommon for countries like Iran, used to be Iraq, and various others to hack websites and put up propaganda saying, the U.S. is killing us all because they're the ones secretly planting the drugs or whatever. So people who believe that stuff can be hurt by politically motivated hacks. And then, of course, there's always the site owners. If you own a website and it gets hacked and somebody puts up something, it's just like with entertainment. You have to clean it up. And if you run an e-com, then it costs you money. So let's talk about the financial motivation of who gets hurt. When banks and governments are extorted, everyone is hurt. If a bank gets robbed, insurance pays it off. But where does insurance get their money? They get it from us. And so in the long run, everyone is hurt when a bank or government is extorted. If you're running an e-commerce store and they've skimmed your cards from you, they haven't actually stolen from you personally, but all of your customers whose cards are compromised are now losing money. And when it comes out that it was through your site, then you do get hurt. You lose those customers. And that can be a really big deal. If your site is used for the above, you have helped facilitate that damage. Which brings us all the way back around to why site security matters. You don't want to be complicit in any of this. And so if you're running a website, it's your responsibility to keep it up to date, keep it secure, because if you don't, it's going to be used to hurt people. So why does site security matter? When websites get hacked, people get hurt. A lot of people. Not just you, not just your friends, but potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of people get hurt in some way. And that is why site security matters. So what do you do about it? You check out the upcoming events at proevents.godaddy.com. The next 3 are dedicated to dealing with security and doing something about it, keeping yourself protected and protecting those around you. And that is the end of my presentation. Sandy, are you there?
There we go. I'm back.
There we go.
Thank you so much. We had at least one question here in chat.
All right.
And I'm interested in this answer too. What is your go-to security plugin and why?
I don't know that I have a single go-to plugin. I like several, and I will tell you why I like each. iThemes security is backed by a large company who has the wherewithal to keep it up to date, to keep it running smoothly, have regular updates. There are things that need to happen, like updating pools of IP addresses of known bad servers, and they do things like that. There's a free version, which I like, and it's a great plugin. I like Wordfence, for similar reasons. There's a free version, but there's a paid version where you can get support to help you. Also backed by a solid company that keeps things up to date. Those are the two big plugins I like. I do also like Sakuri as a service. They do have a plugin, but the real gold is their service, where they have a person keeping an eye on your site, and if you get hacked, they have a person who will help you clean it up and find the hole. That is the hardest part of all. If you get hacked, I mean, you can restore from backup, but you're restoring the hole, and that doesn't help you if they just come right back. So a service like Sakuri can find the problem and fix that, and that's worth the money right there. So those are the three that I like the most.
And when it comes to, looking at overall site health, what are some of the things that you recommend people just do always?
Yeah. The cool new site health thing built into WordPress is pretty slick. It points out a lot of problems. So just keep an eye on that. Always run SSL. It might not help anybody but you, but when you're sitting in a coffee shop and you log into your website over SSL, your password is not going out into the coffee shop. Always run SSL. Keep everything up to date religiously. Set a timer, set a calendar alert that makes you go do it. If you're into it, set auto update on and just have it be taken care of. There are services that will help you with this, a number of them, that will just keep your site up to date for you. Do whatever it takes, but make sure it's up to date. Usually, if you're up to date, you won't get hacked. Occasionally, there's a hack that comes out that's so fast that it gets the latest version. But even at that, if you're keeping up with your updates, then you're going to get the new version as soon as it's out, and it's going to plug the hole. So keep things really updated. Those are my big main things.
Awesome. We have another question. Let me grab it here. Outside of bad hosting that's also on a shared server, what are the most common vulnerabilities that you see with websites? WordPress websites.
With WordPress websites, it is poor code in plugins. WordPress itself is rock solid. Plugins are the Wild West. There are many that are rock solid and just as tight as anything you can imagine. But just by the sheer volume of plugins in the world, the percentage is that you're going to get some with holes, and that's just the way it is. And that's one of the reasons WordPress has the reputation for being so easily hacked. WordPress is not easily hacked. WordPress plugins are easily hacked, or themes. Themes have just the same problem. Make sure that you don't keep unused themes and plugins installed. If you're not using them, delete them, because they're just sitting there. And often, like with plugins, you may think, I'm not going to update that. I'm not using it. And 5 years later, you're running a 5-year-old version of this plugin, and there's a hole just sitting there. They can still be executed from the outside, even when they're deactivated. So get rid of anything you're not using. Just go to your plugins page and look at the deactivated tab. And if there's anything there, delete it. Same with themes. Always keep one theme as a backup. If your main theme gets corrupted somehow, WordPress will intelligently fail over to a backup, another theme install. Usually the default, which is 2021 at the moment. But keep that one up to date. Make sure it's something that gets good updates. So there's that.
Yeah, for sure. I know that whenever I've audited a site, the first thing I do is look at what's being used, what's not being used, and what can we just get rid of if it's not being used. Like just right out of the gate. Yep. Especially because 9 times out of 10, I'll log into a site and their theme will be up to date that they're utilizing, but like 2011, 2010, 2000, like those are all out of date, and I'm going.
Or they did a cPanel install of WordPress that came with 250 free themes. Yeah.
And another 100 plugins.
Yep.
And you're like, no.
Another common thing you can do if you're not using it is to turn off XML RPC. Right now, that's being used by the mobile app. So if you use the mobile app, you need to leave it on. But if you're not using the mobile app and you're not using anything else that needs it, turn it off. Just recently, I almost took a contract from a website that was getting an F on Google Analytics. And it was a pretty heavy site. They had some large images and whatnot, but nothing that warranted a 5-minute page load. And as it turns out, somebody was banging away on XML RPC, doing 400 requests per second, and just killing the server. Actually, the server itself, the Linux, was doing core dumps, which is practically unheard of. Just turned it off, and everything got better, just like that. So turn that off if you don't need it. Another one, this is a favorite trick of mine. You can move your login page so that it's not wp-login.php anymore, which stops people from trying to log in, but does not stop them from loading WordPress. So if you still go there and you get a 404 page, it still spins up PHP, hits the database, loads your theme, all your plugins, and it's not really reducing it. And so if some server out there is banging away 400 times per second trying to log in, they're still loading that 404 page. So if you move your login page, you can use, if you're using Apache, you can use an htaccess directive, or I don't know how to do it in Nginx, but something similar. You can return a 403 forbidden, and it doesn't spin up PHP, and it doesn't load the database, and your server load will drop tremendously, and then the rest of your page loads will go up tremendously, and it'll be grand. So if you move your login page, also make sure you return a 403 page, and then don't forget where you moved it, or you'll be sad.
You would be very, very sad.
Yeah.
How important is two-factor authentication, especially for brochure sites where the client's only logging in once every 2 months and the plugins are updated remotely on a regular basis?
You would ask me that. So
actually, Philip asked you that.
The real answer is two-factor authentication is amazing and can stop a lot of hacks, and it's awesome. Personally, I find it desperately annoying, and I don't use it. I keep all my stuff up to date. I use really strong passwords. I only log in over SSL. I do all those other things, and 2-factor's never saved me. I do know people that it has saved. I don't know what they're doing for quality of passwords or SSL or anything. Most security experts will tell you, yes, absolutely use it. I will tell you, I hate it.
Okay. Yeah, I know on other services and things like that, 2FA has personally saved me because, I do a lot of online shopping, and online shopping sites are some of the most hacked sites for information.
Yeah.
And up until I really got into tech, which was only 6 years ago, I used the exact same very not secure password for everything. And so
Yes.
to this day, I will get a text message from like Evernote that's like, someone's trying to log into your account. And I'm like, wasn't me. I have the 2FA coming to me in text message.
Yep.
So they're not getting any lucky right now. So,
Yeah.
It does save me. At least I've seen, where I think it's saving me. But I turned it on all the services because I had really bad passwords.
Yeah.
And just triggered it all on everything that I was using, which I'm really glad that I did. But
yeah, I should clarify. There are different ways of doing 2FA, and there are a few that I actually don't mind at all. I hate having to find my phone, look up a number, and type it in.
Like Google.
That's really annoying.
Or
right.
Those type services.
But some of them, I'll just get a little note on my phone that says, hey, did you just try to log in? I click yes, and it goes.
Yep.
And it's even easier if I'm using my Android phone or watch.
Mm-hmm.
I have an Android watch, and I just hit it on my watch. That's pretty slick. But I do get nervous with the idea of losing those things. If I lose my phone or my watch, sure, on a lot of them I have backup codes, but I don't want to go through 200 sites and use backup codes and reset all that stuff everywhere. That would be horrible. That would be impetus for me to stop using 2FA, so I don't want to set it all back up again.
Yeah, I personally don't mind the text messages because my text messages up on my computer screen, my watch, and my phone. So even if I were to, lose a device, I'm not losing my phone number. So
that's true, and that's pretty great. However, most people who are real 2FA nuts will say never, ever use text messages for 2FA because it's not secure.
Yeah, that is true.
What does secure mean?
Exactly. And I think, the other thing to remember is there's levels of security and there's levels of comfortability with that security. And figuring out what you're personally comfortable with may be something very different than what someone else may be comfortable with. Like I personally just use iMessage. I don't use something like Signal or anything like that. But there are other people who are like, no, I want everything quadruple encrypted and not hackable. And so, I think it really comes down to you as an individual and what you need for you to feel secure.
Right.
And I think that's no different than your physical house, right? Like we have a security system with automation and all of this. Somebody else may feel like they don't even need a security system.
It's a very, very personal thing. Absolutely.
Beth, I'm going to reword your question a little bit. She wants to know if you were forced to choose between Wordfence or iThemes security, which one would you pick?
Oh,
choose one.
Boy.
I know.
That's tough. It's like picking a child.
Okay, if you had to pick Sophie or M, which one would you pick?
Yeah. Okay, so let me tell you this. Right now, I'm only running one of them, and it's Wordfence. In the past, it has been iThemes. I'm running Wordfence right now because I needed to test some things with it, and it was doing a good enough job that I didn't switch back. I'm going to say you would be equally happy with either. There will be personal preference. Maybe you like the support of one company over the other. Maybe you like who owns one or the other. I don't know. There's beyond personal preference. I don't see a strong difference.
Has Wordfence slowed your site down any? Beth is asking.
I have not noticed that, no.
Yeah.
My site's a bad gauge. I'm running it on my personal blog on cheap hosting. Nobody reads it. I have no idea if it's slow or fast, you know. I get emails from it every time something changes. So if a plugin is auto updated, I get an email, which is kind of nice. I can see equally where it could be annoying.
I like to follow their Twitter, Wordfence's Twitter, because they'll tweet out anything major, and their blog is very thorough when you're looking for information. So yeah, those are.
Yeah, you know, I think that could be a big difference between the two. iThemes Security is a product that they sell, and that's kind of it. They're not a security company. They sell a security plugin, and their engineers are quite good, and they know what they're talking about. Wordfence as a company is a security company, and they have a plugin. And so they do a lot more blog posts, training, education, that sort of thing. So if you're into security and you want to learn about it, Wordfence is a great source. If you're using them as a source, I don't know why you wouldn't use their plugin.
That makes a good point. That's a really good point.
I see Beth is trying to figure out whether to switch. I would not switch either way. Whatever you're using now, keep it, because they're so close that you don't need the headache of switching.
Yeah, that makes sense too, for sure. So we've talked about, you know, what people use and why you need to use these things. Do you have any other tips or tricks for people, especially like if someone's new to the idea of security? Do you have any tips or tricks for people in general?
Oh boy. Other than what I've said, there are some on WordPress.tv. There are some videos about how to code securely, and most of them are pretty easy to follow, even if you're not a developer. I have probably 2 or 3 on there that are quite simple. They're things like use this function or don't use that function. And you could take that information and take any plugin and search through it. Use your computer's search functions and look for those PHP functions. And if you find them or you don't find them, or whichever is appropriate, then it gives you some idea of whether or not the author knew what they were doing. There are a ton of WordPress functions that start with the word or the letters ESC, escape. And they're made for scrubbing input from users. And there's escape text area, escape URL, a whole bunch of them. And if you have a plugin that has any kind of form that takes input from people, either the front end or the back end, and you search it and you don't find those letters ESC anywhere, you know they're not scrubbing user input, and it's not a secure plugin. You don't really have to be a developer to know how to do a text search for ESC. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So check out those videos. And equally, watch Wordfence's blog. They're going to teach you all kinds of stuff, especially new techniques. Hackers come up with new ways of doing things all the time. Things that I've never heard of, things that most people have never heard of. And Wordfence is going to draw attention to them and say, look, somebody figured out how to do X, and it looks like this. And you can check your site and see if you have it. So that's a great source as well.
Awesome. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions for Topher? And just so everyone knows, this is being recorded, so we'll be able to have this up on YouTube for your enjoyment after the fact in case you missed anything. So yeah, so is there anything else you want to leave us with? I don't see any other questions coming in.
Be kind to each other.
That is sage advice, especially in today's climate, for sure. Thank you so much for being here with us, Topher. We all appreciate your knowledge and imparting it upon us. And thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me. I'll see you.